All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with the tutorial today. Thank you very much for joining us. It's a packed house. There are some more space kind of around the front here as well if you're looking for a spot. And today we're going to give you a hands-on tutorial about building and running Kubernetes from source and submitting your first PR. But before we do that, we're going to introduce ourselves, talk a little bit about what we've been doing with Kubernetes, and how the session today will run. So I'm going to first have Silvia introduce herself.
Hi everyone, I'm Silvia, and I work in Google, specifically in the experience of Google Managed Kubernetes and the multi-class experience, on-prem, multi-cloud, to see how we can bring the best Kubernetes experience from Google. And maybe like many of you, I'm relatively new to the open source Kubernetes community, and I have been learning. It's a fun experience for me. So today I'm going to try to help you throughout the experience and what was the developer, just like how I did it myself before. And it's fun.
Good morning, I'm Federico Bongiovanni. My journey with Kubernetes is interesting. I was a user of Kubernetes in my previous company. So I learned a lot about the goods and bads and the pain points and the opportunities. And when I had the opportunity of joining Google, I didn't think it twice. I'm working as an engineering manager on the API machinery team, which is the team that handles most of the components that run on the master node of Kubernetes, API server, controller manager, and all that. So thank you for being here.
Hi, good morning everyone. Are you all having fun? Good, so I'm Mike Taufen. I've worked on Kubernetes at Google for about 3 years now, mostly in SIG-Node in open source, so working on the kubelet and OS images, and I've done a bunch of other things around release infrastructure on-prem and a few other areas. So excited to be helping you guys all learn how to build Kubernetes and send your first PR today.
All right, while I introduce myself, I want to please, if you have not already, follow the instructions at this link or the page that you received. Start a VM at the Cloud Console. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and why we created this tutorial. So my name is Chakeres. I'm a manager at Google working on Kubernetes, but I was not always. Actually, my first touch with Kubernetes was a tutorial with Kelsey in 2015, looking at Kubernetes when it was first released. And I was in another company, and we actually had a lot of success using Kubernetes for our stateless workloads. And we were looking at how can we provide a similar experience for our stateful workloads. And this was in the beginning of 2017. And Kubernetes for stateless workloads was not nearly as mature. And so I knew I was going to have to start contributing. So I started attending SIG meetings, then I wrote some unit tests, I refactored some code, wrote end-to-end tests. Eventually, myself and my team became the largest contributors to Kubernetes, and we were able to really reduce the toil and provide this great experience that Kubernetes provides for development and maintenance of software. But it wasn't really easy to get started. One of the real challenges was just getting up and running, and that means how do you build Kubernetes? And by clock time, you could spend just a little bit of time, but just going through all the docs and making it work with your particular system can be challenging, and the whole process for submitting PRs. And so that was really the emphasis for today's session, was we want to make it possible for you to get involved really easily, and we'll take a few of those first steps today in terms of building Kubernetes, getting your own Kubernetes build running, and then also how to submit a PR and run tests and such. So we have a lot of other volunteers here along the side who are here to help you, all the people here on the side. And if you have a problem as we go through this tutorial and this workshop, please just raise your hand and someone will come over to help you. So the outline for the talk today, as I mentioned, you should already be starting up a VM, and hopefully that step is complete, because Okay, Janine mentioned that people are copying from the PDF and the dashes for launching the VM are not copying and pasting properly. If you actually go to the third file on the website, it contains the command in Markdown, and you can likely copy and paste from there and the dashes will not disappear. So the outline for today's talk, we will get you get a VM running, and then we will build Kubernetes from source. We'll actually clone the repository, and then we'll start up that, and actually Silvia is going to cover this part of the session. And then in the second half, Michael is going to talk about forking the code, making changes, running the unit tests, and submitting a PR. Now there are a few prerequisites. So everyone, it looks like, has a computer so that they can log into the Cloud Console to launch a VM, as well as to open the SSH session to that. The other two are primarily for the second part, which is around submitting a PR. So you need a GitHub account so that you can fork the code. You may not have time to do that, or we have not built in time to do that as part of the session. So if you haven't done that, you won't be able to do that step. And for submitting a PR, you actually do need to agree to the CNCF Code of Conduct and sign the CLA. So if you haven't done these also may prevent you from submitting a PR, but I think you'll still get the process. So the full instructions, many of you received a sheet when you walked in. Those are linked off of this website, as well as the instructions for starting a VM and all the instructions for the other parts of the talk. So some logistics for today's session. We are going to be showing you on the screen all the different actions that we're expecting you to take. We're going to start from the point of the VM being launched and you having SSH'd into that, but we're going to go step by step through with the audience. And every step will kind of pause and get a gauge of how everyone's doing. We really want to try and keep people in sync. So periodically I'll be asking people, if they are with us and have completed this step or not. So please do raise your hand when I request that so that we can set the appropriate pace. For some of you, this may appear to go extremely slowly. And those of you who maybe run into issues, this is gonna feel like we're going really quickly. But we're gonna try and keep the pace appropriate so that we get the majority of the audience through the session. And the key is, we want you to walk out of here having built and run your own Kubernetes, and then also knowing how to submit your first PR. So, does everyone have their VM started up? Anyone who does not, please raise your hand. We'll send somebody. All right, it looks like the first, we're gonna pause here for a minute before we get started, so please do raise your hand so that somebody can come over to you to help out.
Oh, okay.
sounds like there may also be some non-standard Unicode characters in that PDF, so you might just want to paste from the Markdown website to be sure.
So first one, who could not access a website? Could you raise your hand? So everybody could access a website here. Okay, good. So I know some of you may encounter the issue that you fail to open the Cloud Shell and run to Cloud to create a VM. So I'm going to walk through the UI workflow to how to create the VM. And you could follow me through that. It's basically a same output of the Cloud Shell. But it's it's more error prone if you do it in UI, but I will lead you through this session if you couldn't do it in Cloud Shell right now. Yeah. Oh, okay. So if you're good, if everything goes well with your Cloud Shell, focus what you're doing now, follow its instruction. If your Cloud Shell is not loading, right now, I can please go through me and I can show you how to create VM through the UI. So let's go to GCP Compute Engine. So let's see. So for those who want to go through UI, we'll create a new instance now in the GCP project. Basically go to the GCE and instances and create a new one. And you should land on this page. Okay.
Can you make the text bigger on the screen?
If it's big enough.
The UI side as well.
The UI side, okay. So for the UI operation here, you want to create an instance in the GCE. So we recommend you just use the US West 1 zone, which is in Oregon, pretty close to us now. So you'll have better network latency in a sense when you SSH to the VM. And both zones are available here. And to build and run Kubernetes, we do require certain hardware requirements. The minimum is standard 8 with 8 CPUs and 30 GB memory. We are going to use 16 now for this tutorial, so it will run faster. And today our instruction was based on CentOS. So remember to choose the image of CentOS 7. And we do need 50 gigabytes of hard disk for the build process to go. And just click connect. It may take like 1 minute to finish.
Yeah, I'd like to get a show of hands again. How many people are still having trouble with getting a VM? Okay, doing a lot better. If you need help still with the creating from someone, please raise your hand so somebody can come over to you.
Yeah, no, with like the US was trying to do. So the US
That's his mistake over there, basically, because she was trying to use too much specialties.
Yeah, no problem.
So he said it should all be coming through, and he said,
We're going to lead you through the command shortly. So how many people has a VM successfully set up?
All right, great. I think we're ready to get started on building and running Kubernetes from source.
Yep. So we just open
even if it doesn't seem like they're
Go Cloud Shop, drop the access to the VM, so we don't need any setup connection.
sometimes they have actually.
It might take like 1 minute to make it for the first time.
Sometimes it turns out it is something we need. So just good, because at least we got it. Yeah. If she's showing anyone in the room how to do stuff, keep it recording.
Yeah, for those who are following along, you have your VM. The instructions are on the right-hand side here. That is the third link from the buildingkds.com website. So this is the markdown file, and that's what we're going to start stepping through.
You don't have it.
So if you haven't done so, you can start running the YUM update, just like update the standard package manager. It might take a while if it's the first time you run it.
So Ken had a response. Some people are having trouble seeing the Cloud Shell button to launch with SSH. Make sure that you select your project
whatever
in
is in
your
the
Cloud console.
you will
There is a
create
creative project
you
button.
will have an SSH link and you will get straight into
So after the YUM update is done, you can start installing the dependencies we'll need during the build process. We need editors, compilers, we need Git because we need to focus on project related, we need networks because Kubernetes do run some networking functionalities locally.
that is what you do.
So after the standard dependencies are installed, because Docker is not in the default YUM repository, so we'll need to add a specific to the YUM config here. We are using Docker C now, which is a free community version versus Docker E, and it will satisfy all of us today, just for build and run Kubernetes. And we're using Docker now because we're using containerized build for Kubernetes, which is the easiest way to get it build and running. And after a repository, can install Docker.
So we're just going to have this, but it's not a big deal. So this, even though she's doing everything or whatever, this is actually a session that we need to have, so we'll try to make sure that we're on this and whoever's talking. But it seems
Just
like
do a cleanup at all.
yeah, so when like she's
Yeah, try different
All right, so we want to do a check-in with people. How many people are following along right now and have completed this Yum cleanup? Okay, we're doing pretty good. We're going to pause here for just 2 minutes. It seems a few people are still updating.
So some people were having trouble happening with dash dashes. I had one person
done and moving on to a different
it must have coffee stops or with character. Otherwise, just can't.
All right, if you are having problems and you need some help, do make sure you raise your hand. We've got plenty of volunteers to help you out.
Did you mean dash dashes?
yeah, so well, okay, fine. So it is the session,
You go back to the main menu and start clicking on that PDF.
Just give it to the
The entire.
markdown.
I didn't realize this morning when I first did it.
yeah, unless it's obvious that they're starting a different session, that's when you start. But
Okay, let's get another show of hands. How many people are with us, have completed the Yum clean? All right, we're going to keep on going.
Yeah, so the next thing, I'm going to install Go. So basically, we're just going to download the standard Go 1.11 release. And storage local. So we basically need to go in the build time as well as the test runtime because the whole Kubernetes code base was written in Go.
we're good. It wasn't you, it was us. It was us. Just the thing. One is that it's fixed. Cool. We don't care. It's out there. Well, seriously. No, it wasn't you. It was
All right, just a reminder for some people who may be having problems finding the SSH to enter the VM that they've created, make sure you've selected your project on that top line. There's a project in your account, and if you're having a problem with your account, please raise your hand. We have other accounts, we can hand you a different one, and you can log in and get started for those. The project space is in the top left of the UI. And you have to reopen the Cloud Shell after you have selected the project.
So after you have installed Go, we will just export several variables in Shell batch profile. So one is to add a Go path, the Go executive path to our local profile. And we are going to get, this is a directory, the Go path K8 is a directory where we're going to clone the Kubernetes source repo. So we're going to And by the way, how Go organize the source code. It's usually then the home, Go, src. And this is organization, and this is a Git repository we're going to have later. So we're going to export the path-through directory to our, the bash profile as well. And we're going to run XCD later as executable for Kubernetes when we bring up the Kubernetes cluster. So we also export the path to XCD in the Kubernetes source directory, in the bash profile. And just sausage profile afterwards. So how many people have followed this step?
Who has not, and can you raise your hand if you have not, if you're not up to date? Or if you need help, raise your hand, please. Okay, thank you.
So we're going to start cloning Kubernetes from GitHub repository. So makes a directory for the Kubernetes source code under the Go source code directory. And we're going just to clone the Kubernetes repo from GitHub. It might take 1 minute or so. Yes, after the clone is down, into the directory.
Okay.
And the first thing I'm going to do here is we're going to move the remote origin to upstream. So we're doing so for the next step that we're going to do the PR. So you actually update to your own fork instead of the main repository. But if you're just building it and running it without actually doing any PR, you can just directly build it from the original GitHub repo. So here's all the dependency for Kubernetes, and we're just going to install XCD, which is a distributed storage, that Kubernetes storage. And we already there's already a script to bring up to install XCD in Kubernetes source code directory. So just run it and wait for a while.
Excuse me. Yeah. I don't like the show.
So after XCD installation is done, we want to start to run Docker as a demo. And before doing that, we recommend you to add your current user to the user group of Docker, so you don't need to use sudo to run Docker afterwards during the build process.
Okay, cool. Install.
And
if you don't want to use the shower,
enable.
Hello.
And start Docker.
All right, we're going to do another checkpoint here. How many people are with us? Please raise your hand if you're up to date. Okay, this is going great. We're getting really close to the building step.
Yeah. So one thing before we proceed, we do recommend you to close your CloudShare now and relogging. We're doing so because if you notice, we add a new user to the user group. So the easiest way for you to take effect is we basically just log out and log in again. So just close the browser you're currently in and click on SSH again, so open your session. Yes, it's after you complete all the steps of start Docker. Yeah. So after you log in to the VM, let's go to our source code, the redirection of the source code. We want to check out the stable release version, which we're using White Cloud 3 right now for the build around Kubernetes. And here we're going to start the release process. Basically, there's already a command in the make file that we can make a quick release from the source repository. This step may take between 10 to 20 minutes. So during this process, we'll walk around and see if there's any problem you encounter, and we'll help you with that.
Yeah, so how many people are with us here? They've started their Make Quick Release. Please raise your hands. All right, anyone who has not started Make Quick Release who needs help, please raise your hand. This process is going to take about 10 minutes, so we can get everybody back up to date. Anyone with a problem, raise your hand, please. Okay, great.
No.
This is a Tumblr account.
I have not. Yeah, try rejecting it. It's not the right stand. Probably so you can do the flash.
I'm not sure why that's the message that comes up, but
if you have to work a setup, you need to create
Is it working? Awesome.
hang on.
Yeah, so I should get the chat out now. Jonathan, you have gas. Oh, that's fine.
All right.
The tax date is
It's going to make it really difficult for them to try and submit a PR.
Yeah, I mean, so that seems to be the right. I mean, the tag would be archived.
Yeah, I'm just not sure why we did that.
Either that or she went after she gave you knowledge.
Oh yeah, I get it.
Let's just try it. It says it started. Let's try this. Real time. Yeah, just that. And then it's just like Is someone? Can you see what's wrong with the Docker?
So what was it? So basically, when you modify settings, it doesn't
The current shell doesn't work.
Yeah, the log up. Yeah. So with that, and then just reopen that same one. The equivalent would be a login.
Okay, so from here, I'm going to
so now the instance is created. So if you go to, we ran the command and everything. Yeah. So if you go to app or compute address, on the side, on VM instance, and then you should be able to click on the activation button.
All right, we should be getting pretty close. Anybody need help, please do raise your hand so one of the assistants can come help you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. No, so there should be a link on there. So you go back to so if you sign the CLA, you have to go to or CLA, or something like that. When you actually go to submit the PR, the bot will yell at you, and then be like, "Have I signed the CLA yet?" So you can always just do it as well. But there's also instructions Yep. Yep. So your company may have already also, I don't know who you work for. Okay, so you want to set it as an individual and you can either plug in or get something else. How are you guys doing? Slowly running. Actually, you're all set. So the normal thing is there's also another Dr.
So, down here. So, your build is still doing, don't worry, but it may just take a bit more time. And what we're going to show here is we're going to show how you bring up the cluster locally from what we just built. Is that a cluster?
Yeah, it's up.
And this is basically the Kubernetes cluster, and we are going to start here. It's for this environment variable, means that we are going to use the local Kubernetes provider. And for kubeconfig, for obviously use Kubernetes, we're going to point it to the var run Kubernetes admin kubeconfig here. And we can get a node. Let's wait for a bit for it to get up.
Untethering and makes Sabbath faster.
Yeah.
So you can see that we are already waiting for the API server to come up. Let's wait for a bit more. Okay, so let's try to get a node. Yep. So you see, we bring up the Kubernetes cluster from what we just clone and build locally.
All right, so Silvia does have these two windows. One is running the local cluster, and then the other she's used to execute the get nodes command. So how many people's build has completed their quick release, make quick release? Okay, great. That looks pretty good. How many people have their cluster up and running? All right, that's pretty good, about half, more than half. If you are having a problem, please do raise your hand. I think we're going to go ahead and start going through the create and submit a PR content. We only have about We don't have a lot of time. Yeah? 30 minutes. Great. So Michael Taufen's going to start talking about contributing.
Okay, so we mentioned this briefly at the beginning of the session. So if you send a PR, before it can be merged into the upstream repo, you need to have done these two steps. You need to have read and agreed to the code of conduct, and you need to have signed the CLA. If you haven't done that yet, that's okay. You can still follow along with all of these instructions, and the robots on the upstream repo will just tell you that you need to do these things once you've sent your PR. Okay, so the first thing that we are going to do is have everybody fork Kubernetes on GitHub if you haven't done that yet. So follow the instructions in the doc, go to that URL, and you'll click the fork button in the upper right corner. I have screenshots on deck here. So you can see in the screenshot, once you've gone to the Kubernetes upstream repo, there's this fork button up in the upper right-hand corner of the page, and you just click that and follow the instructions on screen. So I'll give everybody a couple minutes just to get their fork created.
All right, if people need help with this step, please raise your hand and somebody will come around and help you fork Kubernetes on GitHub.
So raise your hand if you've been able to successfully create a fork. I'll give everybody another minute or so. Also raise your hand if you can't create a fork, so people can help you, please.
The number of forks is going up.
Yeah. That's our secret plan.
Yeah, so if you are having trouble forking, please raise your hand.
So now that you've got that set up, we're going to go back into the VM. I'm going to set this up for mine as we follow along the instructions here. So the first thing is you're just going to make sure you get your GitHub username in the environment. So you're going to do these two commands.
Yeah, just a reminder to people, this should be your GitHub username. Not Michael's, and not what it says, insert your GitHub username.
It won't work if you have mine because you don't have my SSH keys. Okay, so now we're going to navigate into that clone of Kubernetes that everybody made. And now we're going to do, we're going to make sure that we actually add our fork as the origin remote. So you can check our remotes with git remote -v. So here you can see we just have the upstream remote currently, which points out to Kubernetes. Now I'm going to add a remote to my fork Kubernetes. So you just replace the first Kubernetes with your GitHub user. just fetch the origin. Get all my branches pulled down. So now we're just going to go through. Has everybody been able to do that?
Raise your hand if you're following along with Michael here and you're at the same step.
All right, we'll give everybody another minute. I just fetched my fork. I have lots of branches, so it has lots of output.
But there's your problem right there. The remote origin doesn't have your.
All right, just to show of hands again, how many people are with Michael here that have added their own fork? All right, anyone need us to pause any longer? Raise your hand if you think we should pause. Okay. Can you help these two, please? All right, let's go ahead and continue.
Okay, so now we're going to go into the basics of making a change and setting it upstream. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check out the master branch from the upstream remote. That is where all the magic happens for Kubernetes upstream development. And it's a good idea to branch from there because then you'll have a lower chance of having to rebase on newer changes to get your change merged. So first thing I'm going to do is check out upstream/master. And then I'm going to check out my branch based on upstream slash master. So to do that, you use the -b flag and then provide a branch name. Check out -b, my branch. Just run a git status to check where you are, and it says I'm on my branch K8s. Woohoo!
I'm going to mention something, my branch of KDS. So normal best practice is that branch would have some meaning for what you're going to accomplish within that branch. If it's a feature branch, as an example, you'll describe the feature there so that people can understand, and you yourself can figure out later what is this particular branch for.
So I could call it like my super branch of K8s. We're going to bump that size up a little more.
All right, so how many people have got their branch created? Please raise your hand if you've got your own branch. All right, people who need help creating their own branch, please raise your hands. We've got a bunch of volunteers who can help you.
All right, so now we're going to actually make a change. What we're going to do, as this example here, is just add a test. For those of you who are not familiar with how to write unit tests in Go, there's a link in the instructions here. That would be a great idea to read, but you can also just follow along. So I'm going to go into this normalizer package where we're going to add this test file. So you can see there's a few files in here. There's this normalizer.go file. Which which has a bunch of little helper functions in it. So I'm going to write a really simple low coverage test for this one desk function, just to check the empty string space. So to do that, I'm going to make a new file, test, and Go. It's the convention that test files, the file names end in _test.go. Those are the files where the compiler looks for tests when you run tests. So that's important. As you can see, this is only testing one very simple test case. For the purposes of this session, but if you want to do more than that, we really appreciate it. Basically the extent of our test code here. Now we're going to try it. I'll just write that file. You can see there's a test file there. There's a little test in it. Now I'm going to cd back up to the top level directory of Kubernetes because that's where the make file lives, and there's these handy make commands for running our tests. And now we'll just run that test. See if I typed it in right.
Okay, yeah. Sorry.
And when you type in the path of what to test, you type the full Go path of the package. So that'll start with the domain that the package lives under. So in this case, we're in Kubernetes, and that lives under Kubernetes.io port name. And then just go up to normalize your package that you're testing. You don't go all the way up to your test file. And it passed. So we're going to jump ahead and go through how to send these changes up to upstream here. And then we'll give everybody plenty of time to go find any code you might want to actually add a real test to, so your changes don't all look the same on GitHub.
Let's just do a check. So how many people were able to input the test and run it and got it okay? All right, how many people are still working on that step? Please raise your hand if you're still working on that step. All right, let's give it 1 minute. If you're having trouble running the make test or with the test file, please raise your hand. One of the volunteers will come and help you.
So how's everybody doing? Raise your hand if you've been able to get through those steps so far. We've got, looks like less hands than before. All right, so we're going to go ahead and just show everybody how to commit your change and push up to your fork on GitHub and then create a pull request. And then we'll all just walk around and help everybody get through the rest of it. Okay, so one thing you do want to make sure you do before you send your change is to go format all of your Go code, or there's a linter on the upstream repo that will yell at you if you don't do that. So here I'm going to do that just for that normalizer test file I just created. You should enter the paths for whichever files you created when creating your test. The -W flag to Go format is what causes it to actually write the changes to the file on disk. Otherwise, it will just print out what the file would look like after this format. So I just run git status here, and you can see there is one untracked file. That's the file I just added. So I need to actually add that file. Now you can see it's tracked. And now before I actually make a commit with this file, I have to make sure that I configure this VM to have my GitHub name and email so that those can go into the commit message automatically. So there's just 2 commands in here to do that.
Yeah, I'll mention something about these commands, the user commands here. So the way that the robots accounts work for Kubernetes, they leverage this metadata to know that you have signed the CLA and agreed to the CNCF code of conduct. So it's very important to input these before you do your commit, otherwise you won't be recognized on GitHub.
Now that I've done that, I'll make my commits. And if I get logged, you can see I've got my commit with the name and email I just entered, and the name here on part of the normalizer test I added. And now all that's left to do is push it up to my branch of Kubernetes. So we'll see, Git will probably yell at me and tell me I don't have credentials in this VM, and then we'll figure that out. So I already have a branch on my fork with the same changes, so we're just going to hop over to that and go through the UI. And I actually have screenshots of doing that. Completely fail-safe. So has everybody managed to push a change if you're trying to follow along, or also raise your hand if you're happy just watching? Figuring it out later.
We will come around at the end and help if people are having problems pushing up, but we want to make sure we get through the content about how to create a pull request from the UI.
Yes. Okay, so this is the long way to create a pull request. Sometimes GitHub, once you've recently pushed a branch, will give you a quicker way to do it. We're going to show you the long way because that doesn't always show up. If that does show up, you get a shortcut button, and it's really obvious, and it's just this long yellow line across the top of the page with a green button in it. So, first thing you want to do is navigate back to that Kubernetes/Kubernetes repository on GitHub, and just click the big green New Pull Request button on the right-hand side of the screen. Then, once you've done that, GitHub will give you this Compare Changes view. By default, this view is scoped just to compare two branches in the same repository, but since your changes are over in your fork, you've got to click this link that says Compare Across Forks. Once you do that, it'll give you this fancier view that compares between two repositories. Once you're here, there's these two drop-down boxes on the right-hand side of this menu here. And in the first one, you want to make sure you've selected your fork of Kubernetes. So here in this example, I'm selecting mtaufen/Kubernetes. And then in the second box, you want to select the branch that you made. So Ian approved my desire to call my branch super important change. And so it says super important change here. And that's what I'm selecting for this example. And once you've done that, it will give you a preview. If you scroll down, you can kind of see your commits and all your changes. And if it all looks good, you just click this Create Pull Request button, which will take you out to this menu, which actually has the sort of PR comment that will contain all the important information about your pull request that you're trying to communicate to the community when they're going to come review it. So it's really important to follow the instructions in this template on this menu, and I'm going to switch over to the README, which has just a copy pasta of that here. So this is an example PR template. There are a few recommendations in the template just to read through if it's your first time. So a lot of the stuff in these recommendations we've also talked about in this session, but if you're really interested in diving in, you can also read through them. So there are links to the contributor guidelines in there. There's links to a development guide which can help you with some additional tooling and environment setup. There is some information about which labels should be applied to the pull request. I'll get to that in a second. There's some information on testing, some information on best practices, how to write a release note if you have a user-facing change, and also if you're just sending a PR that's not finished yet and you just want some people to look at it, some additional things you can do to label it and approach that appropriately. So back to labels, we have a labeling system on the Kubernetes repo that helps us categorize pull requests and triage issues and just sort of manage the ecosystem. We don't just give everybody permission to add whatever labels they want. All the labels are added and removed and managed through what we call prow commands. There's a system called prow that runs all of our test infrastructure. It's actually a Kubernetes cluster with this prow system layered on top. And the way you interact with it is via the prow bot, which is a GitHub user that monitors all the comments on the Kubernetes repo and responds to these commands. So if you're IRC fans, you probably are familiar with slash commands. You type a slash and then the command name, and then you type the arguments to the command. In this case, we're applying kind labels to the pull request. So what you want to do is include the slash kind and then the name that accurately describes your PR. So if you're changing a Kubernetes API, for example, you would use the API change label. If you're fixing a bug, you'd use the bug label, and so on. So that's how those work. And then finally, you'll just fill out a few more sections, have a short description of what your PR does and why the community should accept it. In this case, if you're just adding tests, you'd say I added tests, it's active, now it's untested, then you should take it as tests are good. If there's any issues or bugs you're fixing, you can reference the issue code on GitHub here, right, with just a hash and then the number. And what that will do is once your PR that fixes the bug merges, GitHub will automatically close the bug for us. So that helps a lot. Triaging issues. And if there's anything special that didn't fit in the above descriptions, you can put it in the special notes section. And then finally, and this is important to get right, is the release note section. And if you're just writing tests, you don't need a release note, but you do need to type the words none in between the 3 backticks here, or the bot will say that you haven't written a release note. And that just makes sure that everybody is completely explicit about whether or not they need a release note. So that basically concludes our walkthrough of what to do, and now we can all just walk around and help folks who are going through it.
Yeah, I have, at the bottom of the markdown here, there's how to clean up that VM. All these accounts will be deleted tonight, so if there was something you wanted, it will be disappearing. But if you are doing this in the future on your own VM, then you'll probably want to clean up after yourself instead of getting it running, and the instructions are here at the bottom. We're going to just spend the last 10 minutes. We can help those people who are still struggling. We did want to kind of call to action here, become a part of this larger community of Kubernetes. We hope that you were successful in building your own build of Kubernetes and running it, and then understanding how to submit a PR. And like I did, start attending the SIG meetings, write unit tests, refactor things, end-to-end tests, become a part of this community. And there is a bunch of great documentation on the official contributor website. So we want to thank everybody for coming today. And actually, anyone who is interested, we have some $20 credits that you can apply to your own Google Cloud account. Just stop by on your way out, one of the people with the Google Cloud shirts, and they can give you a cloud credit for $20. If you need help, again, just raise your hand. I'd ask also, can you give a round of applause for the volunteers?